Hello there everyone. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a beaded braided wire bracelet. So this is what mine looks like. So you have your braided wire bracelet here, but then I've added beads into it, interspersed them throughout to give it a little bit extra something and add more colour to it. So you get the really nice effect of the braid and then with the beads in between there. And you can add as many or as few beads as you want to depending on the look that you want. So this is what it looks like. So it's a pretty fairly simple and easy one to do. So if you want to learn how to do it, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. Now first of all we'll need our wire here. I'm using a regular round silver coated copper wire, and this is a 1mm in thickness. So this is going to add a nice sturdiness to the piece as well, because we're going to be braiding lengths of wire together, so it's going to become nice and strong. Now as for the beads, in this case I'm using some 6mm rounds, and these are just faceted multicolored agate gemstone beads. You can also use whatever you want to. What I just want to say as well is regarding the wire, you obviously need to make sure the wire will go through the hole in whatever beads that you're using. So if you do find that the beads that you want to use for the piece, you struggle to get the 1mm through the hole, what you could do is go down to a 0.8mm, and if that will go through, that's also going to work. But whether using a 1mm or a 0.8mm, either one is going to work for this. And then in this case, to finish it off, I'm going to be using some ribbon ends here. I'm going to finish it off nicely and give it a nice professional finish. And then also my findings, so jump rings, extended chain, and then my lobster claw clasp. You can also choose whatever findings you want to. So let's get it all together and let's get started. And so the length of wire that we'll need is 5 lengths here of the 1mm wire of about 50 centimeters each. Now that is more than what we're going to need, but I'd rather have too much than too little. And just make sure as well that the wires haven't got kinks or bends in them. So I then put my wires here into a spring clamp that looks like this, and I've just put some of the ends sticking through there. And you can either use this, or you can use a ring clamp, or you can use tape, whatever you can really think of, just to hold the ends of your wires in place, at least while we start working with it, because obviously right now they're loose. Once we get going with the braid, it's going to get a lot easier to work with and just more sturdy in general. And then what we need to do is start making the braid a little bit. I'm just going to make a little bit of braid before we start adding in any beads, just to make sure we get the braid going nicely. And also the beginning part of the braid can sometimes tend to not look as nice and neat as the rest of it, because it's just starting it off. So that's why I also like to use longer lengths than what we need, just in case of that, so you can just not use that very beginning part. But then what we're going to do is make a regular braid here. So I'm going to take my right one first of all. It doesn't matter which side you start with really, but I'm going to take the furthest right one, bring it over the next one and underneath the next one, and then just kind of take your time, figure out your rhythm here. But then the next one here, I'm going to take that over, so the one from the left side, over the next one again in towards the middle, and underneath the next one, which is the one we brought over from the other side, like that. And then basically we want to keep going like that. So that's a basic stitch, you could say. I'm going to take the right side again, keep swapping from side to side. That goes over, and the way you can tell that it goes over, in case you get a bit confused, is you can see the previous one, when this one that we're going to be going over and under now, the previous one that went through is coming under, so we need to make sure the next one here goes over on that same wire. So that's obviously how we achieve the braid. So go over that, underneath the next one, in towards the middle. And like I said, don't worry if the beginning looks a little bit messy or not quite right. Just get the braid going, and then we can start adding beads as well, as we feel it's going to become more comfortable and even the way we want the braid to look. Then take the left one, again go over here. You can see it there again because the previous one is going under, in towards the middle, and then go under the next one. So there we go. So you can then pretty much keep doing this for a little bit if you want to. Obviously not too long, you're going to run out of wire. If you want to add in the beads as well. So you can start doing that now if you're pretty happy with how the braid is going to maybe end up looking. So what I'm going to do is take the furthest right one, I'm going to go over the next one, so it's always the same steps, and then underneath the one after that. But what I just want to do is add a bead to that length that I'm just working with now. So I'm just going to take one of my beads here, put that onto it, let it drop all the way down, and then where I want it to sit is actually in the previous gap, so I'm just going to push it in there, so something a bit like that. Now that's in the middle here. Then I'm going to take the wire from the left side that goes over the next wire and underneath the one in the middle that we just used. And then you can adjust it as you go if you want to. But remember, this is kind of more of an organic look, so it doesn't have to be perfect and look perfect and nice and neat or anything. It's also personal preference how you want yours to look, and also how tight or how loose you want your braid there as well. It's up to you. Then I'm going to go back to the right side, bring it over, which is then right next to the bead there, underneath the next one, same as the other times, bring it into the middle, and then I'm going to go to the left side, furthest left, bring that over the next one and underneath the one in the middle, and then in towards the middle like that. So a little something like this here. Again, I think I want to add a bead to this one, and as you can see, you can just kind of judge it as you go. It's up to you as well how many beads you want to add. If you want it to be quite loaded with beads, you can add beads more frequently, so to more of the length of wire as you're crossing, or if you just want it to be a few beads throughout, you can just leave longer in between adding the beads. So that's completely up to you. Like that. I've got a bead there as well. Then I'm going to go back. You can adjust the braid a bit if you need to. Rather do that as you go here while you're there rather than finish the whole thing. You can still adjust it a bit once you've finished it, but it is easier to do it as you go. Then go back to the right side, bring that over the next one and underneath the middle one and in towards the middle, and just maneuver it in place till you're happy with how it sits. And like I said, decide where you want to add beads. Gotta figure out whether I want to add one now. I think I'm just going to wait. So I'm going to take the left one again as well, go over, that's now around that previous bead, over the next wire, underneath the next one in the middle, and then into the middle with this one that we're currently using. So there we go. Then I'm going to take the right one, bring it into the middle, over the next wire, and underneath the one after that. You can see it's really starting to build up now. And here, like I said, it's up to you how tight you want your braid to be. Obviously there's got to be space for the beads depending what beads you're using. These are 6mm. You could also go down in size on the beads, maybe use 4mm, and then maybe make a tighter braid if you want to. It's completely up to you. Like that. And then I think I want to add a bead to this one that I've just used. So I'm going to add a bead onto that, let it drop down. And this one I think I'm going to leave it there in the middle. So as you can see, you're just kind of building it as you go, and it ends up being quite nice and organic as well. Then take the left one over and under in towards the middle, and then that traps that bead in place there. So there we go. So you can see the different look you can achieve. You can imagine that if you put more beads, how much tighter it will be with how many beads you're using, or if you have more spacing. It just all depends on the look that you want, really. So I'm going to go back to the other side, make the braid on this side, bring it over and under into the middle, and just adjust it so it sits how you want it to sit, and then just keep going. So keep making your braid like this, go from side to side, bring it over and under, or under and over into the middle. Add your beads along the way as you go, depending on how you want it to look, and then you're going to build up and get to roughly about the length that you need for your bracelet, obviously minus whatever clasp you're going to use. But also just make sure that you don't add beads too far, in the sense that if I make it too long and then I need to cut it off and I have beads where I need to cut it off, that's obviously kind of no point to that. So just get the beaded section roughly the length that you need minus your clasp. So I now kept braiding here until I reached a decent length, enough for what I need from a bracelet, and then also adding in the beads along the way. And you can see you can achieve something like this, or like I said, a fuller look of beads, or even less. It's completely up to you. It could also be fun to maybe mix up the kinds of beads or even the sizes within it. So there's loads of different options here. It's very organic and to suit whatever you want to. So now what we have to do is finish off the ends. So then once you have your length of braid here, to finish off the end, what we're going to need to do is just prepare the ends here of the wire, obviously get rid of the excess as well, to then be able to use the ribbon ends to give it a nice neat finish. So what I'm just going to do is kind of, where I'm going to finish it, keep hold and then just bend the wires more upwards there, out towards the end of it, just because we don't want the wires sticking out to the side too much. So just to prepare them here, and then I'm going to get my wire cutters and then decide where I want to cut this. Now you just want to cut it so you have a few extra millimeters compared to where you want the actual end of them to be. So I'm going to cut somewhere around here, and then you just want to go all the way across, one wire at a time, cut them down to about the same length, all the way to the other side here, just like this. And then what we need to do is again prepare the wires, because I don't want to just put my cord end, or ribbon end here, sorry, on top of this. Obviously I'm going to use glue as well, but the wires are going to either straight away or over time be more likely to be able to pull out even with glue. So what I prefer to do is take some flat nose pliers, and then right at the ends, that's why I said to leave an extra couple of millimeters compared to where you actually want them to finish. So the outer ones here, so the ones furthest out to the side, I want to just grab the end of that and bend them inwards, just the last couple of millimeters. Bend it inwards like this. And then the others across, just bend them in the direction that seems more convenient for that specific wire. So you kind of get a level edge all the way along. So we don't really have one wire sticking out further than the others, because obviously that'll stop the ribbon end going on evenly. Then again, the outer one on this side, just bend that inwards as well towards the middle. So something like that. And what this does as well is the very ends, because they're bent so they're sideways, instead of just having the straight wires, even with the glue, they're not going to be able to pull out from the ribbon end in the same way. So it really helps with the durability as well. So now what I'm going to do is take my ribbon end here, I'm going to add some glue as well, and for this I'm going to be using my E6000. It's a really nice and strong glue, but it also dries clear in case any of the glue kind of seeps out. Then I'm just going to take a toothpick here to apply it with. Take a nice little bit of glue, not too much because you can always add more rather than take away. Then I'm going to put glue inside of the actual ribbon end. So go all the way up and down the sides here, and don't add too much glue like I said, because it's just going to come spilling out when we clamp this down anyway. Just make sure you cover the sides, and then what I have left on here, I'm actually going to put that on the end of the bracelet itself, just right on the end that's going to go inside the ribbon end on both sides, because that just gives it a nicer and stronger bond as well, because you then get the glue right in between the wires here, which then bonds to the ribbon end, and it's going to be really nice and strong and durable. So something a bit like that. Then I'm going to take the ribbon end onto the end there, place it onto it, grab your flat nose pliers, and then I like to hold the piece in my hand while holding a finger on each side of the ribbon end here, just to kind of hold it in place. Then what I want to do is start clamping this down, and I want to do it a little bit at a time because it can move across, you can see, from side to side, and I want to make sure that I clamp this down so it's equal and nice in the middle there. So I'm going to go a little bit from side to side, just a bit at a time, and then when I feel like I'm almost all the way there, I'm going to just have a look to make sure it's stayed in the middle, keep hold of it, and then go in and clamp it all the way down, nice and firmly. And this is especially where you can see if you put too much glue it's going to come spilling out. It's not too big of a deal. Like I said, if you have a glue that dries clear, you won't really be able to see it. Or otherwise you might be able to pick it off a little bit or take it off while it's still wet before it dries. I like to just come in from the sides as well. Make sure we close up the sides nicely so it's not too open. Just like that. And then what you want to do is leave this to dry, obviously. And all that's left to do after that is add whatever findings you want to use to the loops that we have on the end of the ribbon ends there. Obviously do this to both ends, let it dry, add your findings, and then all that's left to do after that is then shape the bracelet. So now that we've finished off both ends here, and I've also attached my findings, then all you gotta do is shape the bracelet. So you can either, if you have something of the size and shape that you want it to be, you can either bend it around it, or otherwise you can just use your hands and fingers. I like to just kind of start from one place and then gradually do a bit at a time, go back and forth to get a nice curve in there. So I don't like going into one place and just do a big bend because that'll kind of put it out of shape, but just work your way back and forth, get a nice curve in until you get closer to the point where the ends meet on one side. And I personally like to go more for an oval shape of bracelet than say a round, because I feel like it fits better on the wrist, because your wrists aren't really round, they're more oval. And it's more comfortable, but also it then has a smaller tendency to kind of roll around in your wrist while you're wearing them. So I personally prefer the oval shape. So something a bit like this. And then once you're happy with it, you can obviously use your clasp, and then you'll have your finished bracelet. And it looks a little something like this. So it gives a really nice effect with the braid, and then just the interspersed beads there, however much or little you want to, it just adds that pop of colour and a little bit of interest to it. So this is what it looks like. So quite a simple one to do. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this wire woven bracelet where I've added in some beads along the way as well. And this is the final piece that I've made. So it looks like this. So I'm doing a regular wire weave here. This is the Aztec wire weave. And then what I'm doing though along the way is I'm adding in little seed beads to add this really big impact of some colour as well. It gives a really totally completely different effect, I think, adding in those beads. You can really play around with both the colour